And okay, Glenn, if you're a prosecutor, how concerned are you by this evidence challenge?
Oh, Chris, I'm not concerned by the substance of any of these motions that have been filed by Donald Trump's attorneys. And I think Ken's overview gives us a sense of what the real problem is. Motion after motion after motion is being filed. And there really is little basis, little evidentiary or legal basis for these motions. The problem is Judge Cannon is entertaining every one ad nauseum, at length, and is refusing to set a trial date. And the problem becomes, if you have no trial date, then you need not set any intermediate deadlines that must be met to resolve these motions as you move toward a firm trial date. It really does feel like delay is the point. But really briefly, with respect to the motion that's being argued right now, it's called a spoliation motion. It's a fancy word for, hey, the FBI agents intentionally destroyed evidence and didn't preserve it because it would have helped Donald Trump prove he's not guilty. And because the claim is, they didn't specifically say when they opened, all of these boxes, oh, wait a minute, a classified document was nestled next to a newspaper clipping with a picture of Donald Trump, which was nestled next to military attack plans on foreign countries, which was nestled next to a golf shirt. Therefore, you've destroyed exculpatory evidence. The legal term I would use for that kind of an argument is nonsense. What the FBI did is they documented the box in the location in which they found it. They opened it up and they documented what it looked like. And then they documented every single thing meticulously that came out of each and every box. The problem is there's no legal basis to attack that search, but Judge Cannon is going to burn through a whole bunch of time giving Donald Trump the delay he so desperately covets.
So let me ask you a little bit more about Aileen Cannon, because I will admit I was a little surprised to see in the Wall Street Journal today, no liberal newspaper for sure, an op-ed about how the documents case is crawling along, about how questions about Aileen Cannon are broadening. Legal observers wondering whether she's in over her head. There was that reporting, I think it was last week, that there were some other judges who were senior to her who suggested that she might want to take herself out of a high-profile case like this, and she did not. But there is no recourse, right, for the prosecution or for anyone, a judge who's sitting on a case, barring something, I suppose, really egregious, sits and continues to hear the case.
It feels like there's little recourse, but there are some things that Jack Smith can do. And I don't pretend to know what goes on behind the scenes these days at the Department of Justice, having retired after decades there. But I have to believe Jack Smith has some overarching plan here, because right now it feels like we are meandering in what will forever be pretrial proceedings, and we will never even get a trial date set. I think it is beyond unusual that when Donald Trump's lawyers suggested an August 12th trial date was acceptable, Judge Cannon said, no, I'm not going to set any trial date. A couple of things Jack Smith could do. Obviously, he could file a motion to recuse, saying that the federal law, which says if a judge's impartiality might reasonably be questioned, they shall disqualify themselves. Well, I don't know how much more reasonable the questions about Judge Cannon's impartiality can get that then when two of her colleagues in the very federal district in which she sits, including the chief judge, Judge Altanaga, urged her not to preside over the Trump case. That sure feels like her impartiality being reasonably questioned, and certainly feels like an appearance problem. So there are some things Jack Smith could do. He could also file a motion saying, Judge, you need to set a trial date, or else we're going to consider filing what's called a petition for a writ of mandamus in the appeals court and having the appeals court direct you to, in essence, do your job and set a trial date. There are some things Jack Smith can do.
Glenn Kirshner, always good to have you on the show. Thank you, Glenn.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.